Amidst the constant noise of the international airport, where every minute passes like rolling stones on a never-ending road, an elderly couple appeared in the first-class boarding area. Not flashy, not ostentatious, the image of an elderly couple walking with slow, confident steps, highlighting the simplicity, but no less elegant. James and Evelyn Carter, the man with salt and pepper hair and deep, experienced eyes, and the woman with a gentle, profound gaze, without the need for external glamour, still exude a special aura that makes people unable to look away. Right next to the first-class cabin door, Rachel Moore, a young, newly hired flight attendant, her face stern, her eyes shining with tension and pressure, stood blocking the way, her voice stiff and cold. "First class is for business class passengers only. Please go to economy class." Not once did she look at the passenger list. Not once did she open her heart to see the story behind the simple clothes. Rachel was caught up in her narrow view. Her hasty prejudice prevented her from realizing that appearance does not always speak for the true person inside. People often say, "Never judge a book by its cover," but at that moment, it seemed like she had not heard that reminder. So are James and Evelyn Carter really not qualified for first class? Or is there something Rachel doesn't know? A hidden truth beneath that simple exterior. The untold story. The secrets waiting to be revealed. And are you, the one watching, ready to dive into this special flight with me? Share where you're watching this video, because every story begins with a conversation, a connection we make together. The gentle afternoon sunlight filtered through the large glass panels of the terminal, drawing soft lines of light on the simple but elegant outfits of Mr. and Mrs. James and Evelyn Carter. James, with his silver hair like the mark of time, his eyes were deep and carried with them the ups and downs of a life that had stood behind countless big and small decisions of a famous airline. Next to him, Evelyn appeared with a gentle look, a gentle but powerful smile, like someone who silently understood and shared all the burdens of life with her husband. Although they are the founders and owners of a leading airline, they still choose simplicity for themselves, not showing off, because they understand that modesty is what makes up their true value. Not far away, Rachel Moore, a young woman who had just started her career as a flight attendant, was standing at the passenger control counter. The pressure of her new job, along with her desire to assert herself, made her rigid and mechanically adhere to her principles. When the intercom rang, announcing a VIP passenger on the flight, Rachel's eyes sparkled with anxiety, but she did not leave her role, maintaining a cold and serious expression. She did not know that the person who had just approached was the owner of the airline she was serving, the simple yet powerful Carter couple, waiting to be welcomed with dignity. As the Carters approached the first-class entrance, Rachel Moore stepped forward, her stern presence like an invisible wall blocking their path. Her voice rang out, uncompromising, "First class is for business class only. Please go to economy class." The words were like a verdict, stiff and lacking in any sense of the person standing before her. James and Evelyn looked at each other, neither angry nor reacting violently. Evelyn, with a gentle but firm gesture, gently reminded Rachel, "Please check our tickets again." Her eyes were not pleading or arguing, simply a request for fairness. James sighed, maintaining his composure like a man who had experienced many storms, showing the nobility of a master in the art of dealing with people. However, Rachel remained steadfast, refusing to look at the ticket they presented. She held on to her prejudices, closed her heart to the truth, and let her hidden prejudices influence her decisions. The atmosphere around her began to change. The curious gazes of the other passengers turned towards them, the tension quietly spreading like an uncomfortable mist in the luxurious waiting room. Evelyn gently adjusted the shawl around her shoulders, her eyes still calm but exuding an unshakable inner strength, like a gentle but powerful challenge to Rachel and all the witnesses. In that moment, the contrast between real power and temporary power was clearly revealed, laying the foundation for a confrontation that was not only a collision between two people, but also a clash between prejudice and truth. Emily stood silently in the corner of the cabin, her eyes unable to take their eyes off the scene unfolding before her. The feeling of confusion and remorse mixed together in her heart like an undercurrent that kept rising. As a newcomer, Emily understood the pressure of work and the strict rules that Rachel had to follow, but deep down, she could not turn a blind eye to the injustice that was happening. Stepping closer, Emily's voice was gentle but filled with caution. "Rachel, you should check your ticket carefully. There might be a mistake." But that warning seemed to only echo in the cold space, because Rachel still maintained a firm attitude like a solid, unshakable wall. Rachel, with her cold eyes and determined expression, confident in her authority, unintentionally let her ingrained prejudices control her actions. She not only rejected a pair of passengers, but also rejected the truth and personality. Emily, inwardly, was torn between following the rules and her conscience of justice. She quietly looked at the passenger list in her hand, clearly seeing Carter's name. A name she knew was the airline's logo, the real owner of this flight. But her hesitation, fear, and concern about the consequences prevented her from speaking up, only daring to keep it to herself. Meanwhile, Rachel still did not give in. Every word she spoke carried a coldness, a clear rejection not only for the couple, but also like an invisible curtain separating understanding and prejudice, responsibility and indifference. The atmosphere in the cabin began to become stifling. The tension gradually spread in the curious gazes of the surrounding passengers, like an alarm bell for a story about to be revealed, a truth waiting to be lit. The intercom phone rang suddenly, cutting through the tension that had been lingering in the narrow space of the plane cabin. The voice over the intercom rang out clearly, full of authority but no less cold. "The Carter couple are the owners of the airline. They must be given priority to first class." The announcement was like a thunderclap from the sky, causing Rachel to pause, her eyes widening in the moment of silence filled with chaos inside. The feeling of confusion gradually spread, filling her heart, at the same time as the bitter realization that she had made an undeniable mistake exploded in her mind. She had thought that her rigidity and strict attitude would help her maintain her position at work, but now all that was left was a deep scar that stabbed straight into her own pride and self-esteem. With each thought rushing back, intertwined with each breath, Rachel began to feel the heaviness like a stone pressing down on her chest, making her almost suffocate in the wave of shame she could not hide. Before her eyes, the Carter couple stood there, their eyes gentle, without a trace of anger or resentment. That calmness was not only patience, but also contained a profound lesson conveyed through that look. The lesson of forgiveness, tolerance beyond all prejudices, and a thorough understanding of humanity. They did not choose to confront with anger or resistance, but with a rare serenity, making the surrounding atmosphere suddenly become lighter, more peaceful. The eyes of the passengers around her were no longer curious or critical, but began to shift to empathy, as if they were witnessing a powerful and humane moment of awakening. Rachel, standing there with undisguised embarrassment and shame, felt as if a curtain was slowly being pulled back, revealing a person undergoing a profound inner transformation. A journey that was not just about admitting mistakes, but also the first step towards maturity, towards a new perspective on justice and compassion. In the luxurious cabin of an airliner, where wealth and power are often celebrated with arrogance and rigid ego, the moment was marked by a powerful silence of tolerance, a gentle but powerful reminder that, in the end, it is character and understanding that make a person truly valuable. Rachel stood there, feeling the strong beat of her heart, knowing that life would never be the same again, and neither could she. When the flight ended, Rachel received a summons from her superiors, an inevitable meeting where she had to explain the whole incident with an attitude that was both tense and full of remorse. The questions were not simply to clarify the details, but also to act as a mirror for her to realize how deeply she had made a mistake. In the cold conference room, Rachel felt each question like a small needle stabbing into her self-esteem, forcing her to face herself with the prejudices that she had long dared not look directly at. The story did not stop at the company walls, but quickly spread throughout the airline like a wave of awakening. Rachel was arranged to participate in training sessions on unconscious bias and discrimination, where she not only learned the theory, but also had to face her deepest emotions, the hidden corners that she had long tried to hide. Each lesson was like a shining light, gradually helping her understand that rigidity and prejudice not only hurt others, but also hindered her own path to maturity. Meanwhile, Emily, the colleague who had tried to dissuade her, was encouraged by her superiors and given more opportunities to demonstrate her dedication and spirit of improvement. This trust was not only a worthy reward for her humane and delicate attitude, but also an affirmation that the company was starting to change, opening its heart to diversity and respect. The Carters, with courage and open hearts, not only stood by and watched, but also proactively proposed new policies to enhance training on respect, diversity, and equity throughout the company. They understood that sustainable development cannot be built on a foundation of prejudice and discrimination, but must be nurtured with compassion and deep understanding. As Rachel stood on the sidelines of the airport, watching the couple disembark, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for them but for herself, for having the opportunity to reflect, to change, to reinvent herself. The determination in her eyes was like a smoldering flame, promising a new journey, a new person with an open heart and a humble soul. All around, passengers and staff were quietly reflecting on the story they had just experienced, considering it not just a temporary event, but a profound lesson in humility, in respect for people, and in awareness that needs to be lit up every day in the smallest actions. That story, though simple, carries within it the power to change, not only for Rachel as an individual, but also for a collective, a society that is still facing the challenges of prejudice and lack of understanding every day. There are moments in life, however small, that remain indelibly imprinted in our minds. For me, that moment of confronting myself in that event will follow me throughout my life journey as a constant reminder of humility, of the power of kindness and understanding. I have learned that truth lies not in rigid rules, but in the deeper way we see others, with our souls, not our appearances. James and Evelyn Carter, with their warm eyes and open hearts, have given us a message more valuable than any sermon, that kindness is not a choice but a duty, and that only by courageously looking at ourselves and letting go of invisible prejudices can society move towards equality and respect for diversity. This lesson is not just for me, but for all of us, people who face differences in our lives every day. I would like to invite you, who are following this story, to look back at yourself with me, to together cultivate a world without prejudice, a society where each individual is valued by heart and dignity. If you have similar experiences or profound lessons to share, please leave your thoughts below, because it is from these small stories that we find the strength to change, not only ourselves, but also the world around us. And remember, change begins with sincere actions, with quiet compassion, so that each day we become better. Not perfect, but always daring to look back and learn. When we know how to look at people with our souls, this world will become so much gentler and more beautiful. That is the belief, the hope, the guiding light for all of us on the journey to find empathy and justice.